Hey everyone, it's Crystal with Sober Onions podcast. It is December, so we are feeling the holidays, staying sober through them all. I am excited today because I have a very special guest. I have actually had him on the schedule and I have been waiting to do this interview. So I have Michael here. He is in London over on the south end of the sea by the North Shore. So if you want to say hi, Michael.
Hi there, how are you doing?
I love your accent. I'm like big on accents. I lived in Australia and I'm like a big Australia person and I just love accents. So I was excited about that as well.
I know what you mean. I haven't got an accent. You're the one
What are
with
you
one.
talking about? I know, right? I'm the one with, I have a Florida accent in California. Like I had someone look at me like, did you just say y'all? And I'm like, oh, I did. Ooh, okay, sorry. But anyway, so you are 39 years old, a couple of years younger than me. You're a communications manager for a London local authority. You didn't skip a beat. You had that job before you got sober, correct?
No, actually, I had a similar job before I
Oh,
got
ooh,
sober.
okay. Well,
For a
I will
different,
ask you
for a
about
different
that.
authority, yeah. But no,
Excellent.
I've had some time off during sobriety, during getting sober and recovery.
Okay, excellent. That's a great. I'm glad we brought that up. We'll definitely come around back to that. You have started Instagram and Facebook platform, which is how I saw and found you, and it's called Happy Without the Hooch, right? Happy Without the Hooch,
Yes.
which I love. And you foster cats, which you're super passionate about, which is awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And a lot of the reason I have you here today is that we have some things in common as far as sobriety, being a little new to it. Also, we are not young chickens, but we're also, in our midlife where things are really becoming very important as you age. Time is so precious. Every day seems very, very precious. And you, like me, are running social events for people that are trying to stay sober or in recovery, and I just commend you for that. So I kind of wanted to talk to you and ask you a little bit more about you. I'm going to go ahead and let you have the floor and tell me, how long are you in sobriety? Did you end up going to a treatment center? We talked about maybe a different job you ended up with, and what was your rock bottom? How did you get to where you're at today, and what is it that you are doing to maintain your sobriety?
Okay, that's quite a few questions. So
Yeah.
where do we begin? So I'll start with how long I've been sober. So as we speak, I have been just under 10 months sober. It'll be 10 months on the 17th of December. And rock bottom. I've had a couple of rock bottoms really, because I suppose my real rock bottom was actually in 2020, so last year. Well, I had my first rock bottom then, and that caused me to sober up. I went to hospital. I've been having real trouble with addiction and mental health, and as we all know, they really sort of perpetuate each other. So the worse my mental health became, the more I drink, the worse my mental health would become, until I was just I'd overdosed, and it wasn't the first time. And I realized, look, I've got to get out of this. My poor dad, who's 70, he just sort of worried every night about, because I was living on my own, and he knew I had a drink problem, and I didn't want to be, I'm an adult. I didn't want people to worry about me, and I'd just hide what I was doing and lie so as not to worry them, which made them worry worse. But that was just a real low for me. I came out and I decided I'm going to spend some time with my parents. I phoned my dad. I said, Dad, do you mind if I come and live with you for a bit? I've not lived with my family since I was 18. I moved out of the house when I was 18. And but I reached out to him, and he was relieved. He'd been waiting for me to make that call one day. It was, I mean, he obviously knew that I was struggling, because on more than one occasion he's come to pick me up out of the gutter, literally, when I've sort of just got drunk and broken bones and not known where I am. And so I went to stay with my dad, and then 1 week later we were all in lockdown. So that then cemented the fact that I was staying with my dad. We thought it was 3 weeks at the time, but of course, we're still going through a bit of it now. So I stayed there for 3 months in the end. And I think a lot of people agree that sort of 90 days is a is a good amount of time to begin to change your life. I think if you make it 90 days, then you've got over the worst, and you're at the stage where you can begin to sort of adjust your life with some confidence. And I did that, and then in October, I told myself when I was out, oh, I could have one drink and nobody would know about it. I thought I'd get away with it. And that was a disaster. I got drunk a lot quicker than usual because I hadn't drunk for so long. I'd been sober just over 7 months. And I ended up spending the night in the police cell. So after 7 months of sobriety, one night back on the drink, and I just got ridiculously drunk and spent the night in the cells. And then I continued drinking until until past Christmas and into February. So that one drink lasted me 4 months, and completely undid. Well, it didn't undo all the good work. I'm not going to say that, because I think I learned a lot from going sober the first time. I didn't think I could do it the first time. There wasn't a belief that I would actually manage it. I thought that's something that's not possible for me. So the second time I decided to have a go at sobriety, and I knew that it's something I could do. And I also knew how fragile my sobriety would be, and that you're not just going to be able to have one drink, because look what happened last time. So I suppose in a way, I'm not grateful that I failed, but I think it was part of my journey, and it's made sure that I'm not going to fail again, because there was absolutely no will for me to have another drink ever again. The second time I ended up again, my mental health was in pieces, and I was put under the care of the local mental health team for a while. It was worse than the first rock bottom. And I think that's probably, if I were to do it again, it would probably be even worse again. I'm not sure. And when I get like that, when I get really drunk, I become so depressed that I have suicidal ideation, and it's not something I do when I'm sober. So I need to keep myself safe. I don't want to invite in that misery and chaos that comes with alcohol, and that self-loathing and shame. So fingers crossed. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen again, because, I thought it wasn't going to happen last time, but I'm doing more to keep myself safe and to keep myself sober. And I know what's at stake now.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. For me, it's really difficult because I did the same thing. How many times I stopped and I thought I could, and I always thought I could do it on my own. And even now in my sobriety, I do have those thoughts. You have those, like, what if I just had one? No one will know, and I've heard so many people that have done it, and they're just like, it just never happens. It never stays at one. You always progress faster. You get drunker faster. I just did an interview with Shay from Utah, and she's awesome. And that was
She's
how,
brilliant.
yeah, she's awesome. And, that was what she said. She was like, each time it progressed faster and faster. It was like, before it would be these lengths of time, and then the next time it was shorter, the next time it was shorter, the next time it was shorter, and at the end it was mental health. And and that's where I was as well. I was going, okay, I'm 41 years old, and I felt like I was like in the depths of despair, like my life meant nothing. And it's not true. I was just beating myself up and then using alcohol is the solution, and then it would make it worse. And so that's how I ended up in detox. And I know you talked about, I read on your bio that you did the Smart Recovery program, and you said you were with the mental health program. They are a 4-point program, which I was reading, very popular actually, which I love their motto, and it's my motto as well. It's, that we have the choice to choose which program that we do. Not all programs fit everybody. What fits one person doesn't fit the other person. And I know that you are behind that as well, that, someone listening to this podcast could say, wow, I've had the same experience as Michael, and I'm ready to stop. I don't have the will anymore. I don't have the energy and the mental capacity to continue doing what I was doing. And someone might shove AA in their face, or they might say, you got to do this, or you got to do that. And there's so many programs out there, and you just have to find what works for you.
Yeah, you've got to try everything, be like eclectic. And then, I mean, you can do more than one as well. I've got friends who do Smart Recovery and they go to AA meetings as well. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I did 12-step programs. I didn't get on with them so much, but what I did like about them was the fellowship aspect, which wasn't something that really existed in Smart Recovery. I really liked the principles of Smart Recovery. There's a lot of sort of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, some principles of that in there. It works on the basis that alcohol and drugs, when you drink or take them, that is a choice. And if you can choose to take them, then you can choose to stop. I mean, it takes a lot of willpower and some skills because they're addictive subjects, but it is a choice and it's within your own power. And that was something that resonated well with me. I mean, I'm not going to diss any program, but I found this was more of a scientific program. And I think that the 12 steps programs tend to be more spiritual. And I'm just not a spiritual person. And so I found that Smart Recovery resonated better for me. I also sort of read widely, and I tried to put that into practice as much as I could. And when I failed, every time I'd had an urge or I'd tripped up, I would have like what I call a post-mortem. I'd sit down and I'd study what was it that triggered that thought. And what could I have done to have avoided it? Or do I avoid the situation? Or do I use some sort of coping strategy so that I can be stronger and not give in to the temptation? So it equipped me with some tools. And I actually went along for 3 years to Smart Recovery. And I'd turn up each week, I'd go to a session, and then I'd go home and probably not think about it much until the next week came along. And I wasn't making much progress. I'd be drinking in the meantime. And it's because I wasn't doing any of the homework. I didn't want the consequences of my addiction, but I wasn't quite ready to give it up either. I think like a lot of people, I probably entered this wanting to be someone who could moderate, so they could, and I'd try and find different ways of maybe I'll have just wine instead of spirits, or I think you call it liquor, or I'd try all different sorts of combinations. I'll have one drink in between. I tried all sorts of tricks that would essentially enable or facilitate me to keep my addiction, but in a moderate way. And it just didn't work. I think some of us are never going to hack moderation. And, I've been trying it for 20 years. I think the last thing I needed was more practice. I think I needed to acknowledge, look, you're not going to get this. You're not very good at it. And you don't have to be good at everything in life. I was saying to someone recently, imagine you've got a friend who they really like playing basketball, say, and they're throwing everything at it. Every free hour they get, they're playing basketball, but they're rubbish. They're absolutely rubbish. And they're not seeing their family because they're spending so much time trying to get better. They're spending a load of money. They're not getting paid for it. And actually, it's devastating their life. You wouldn't be encouraging that friend to carry on trying their best at basketball. You might say, look, you're not very good at basketball, and it's ruining your life. So maybe you should just not do it and find something else that you're better at. And I think it's fairly similar with drinking for me, as I wasn't very good at it. I need to find something else.
Yeah, I totally agree. I always thought I was this great drinker, and I drank too fast. I was a fast drinker. I would drink so fast. But I think you brought up something that really I thought about, was that you really have to want to get sober, because
Yeah.
my oldest daughter, it got to the point where she sent this text, and it was like, "Mom, don't be offended, but I think you need some help. And here's my friend, and he's AA, and he's getting his life together, and this is his group and all this stuff." And so I'm like, okay, and I want my daughter to be appeased, and then I want her to think that I'm going to these meetings and I'm getting involved. And it was right when COVID started, so it was all on Zoom. And so I called the lady and I said, my daughter gave me the number, and it was an AA thing online. And I said, my name is Crystal, and I drink a lot. That's all I said. I drink a lot, and she was like, "Oh, join our group. It's this thing, this Zoom thing." And so I get on there. I've got a full glass of wine, and it's right behind the computer.
Oh,
It's sitting there, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm talking on AA, and they'd be like, "Oh, my name is so and so. I'm an alcoholic," and I'm like, "I am not saying that. Like, I am refused to say that I'm an alcoholic." And so I would go on these Zooms, and then I get off, and I'd be drinking on the side, and every time there was like a break, I would like turn my computer and then like take the drink, and then like come back and see if anybody noticed. It was ridiculous. So, and then I would go tell my daughter, like, "Hey, I went to an AA meeting," and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's awesome!" It was just
so proud of you.
but I did not want to get sober. That was not where I was at in life. I didn't believe I could. Honestly, in my mind, I couldn't imagine not drinking. I really couldn't. And I did all these things where, like you, it was like put a water in between, or I would try and look up statistics. And I was just actually looking up the statistics before, the most current ones, before we got on this interview. And it's staggering, because there's tens of millions of people worldwide that are literally overdosing, dying, or causing death. And in 2019, it was 72,000, like 72,000 people overdosing. By 2020, it went up 30%. 30% to 93,000 of people overdosing. And like you said, you experienced overdose. Like, thank God you're here. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, you are not a statistic, and thank God for that. And what was even more staggering about my digging into this statistics was that only 1 out of 10 people will seek help for addiction. 1 out of 10 people. I mean, that's unbelievable. And it's because our we think that we are not alcoholics. Women, we're like, okay, I think I can handle 7 drinks and I'm good. But that's binge drinking, and that's where we get to the jail cells and the gutters and all of that. And that's where I was. I mean, there was times where I drank, and I was in a relationship, and we would get into a fight, and I'd open the door and get out, and like be in the middle of nowhere with no phone, and have to walk. And like, number one, completely dangerous. I was a mom at the time, responsible for 2 human beings. And my addiction was so overpowering that there wasn't a relationship that wasn't completely chaotic. Every relationship was fighting, drinking, throwing physical. It was nuts. And it's like this big ball of people that we've all experienced the same thing. We're all going through it, but we get a pat on the back if we binge drink and we wake up the next day and we're hungover. And if it's not affecting your life for that moment in time, you can continue to do it, which is what I did. I was able to hide it, or I was running in this business and I was running in that business, and I would drink over here so these people wouldn't know about it. And then when I messed up over here, I'd move to this group and be drinking over there. And then when I kind of messed things up over there, I would move to this group. And by the time I got back to this group, hopefully they didn't, remember how drunk I was at that party. And so it really is voicing and honestly being so transparent. It sucks. Like, I don't want to tell people that I was that person, or that I was that low mentally in my life, but it's because there's other people out there like us that are going through that. And because you came on this podcast, people are going to hear your story and say, you know what, he did it once, he did it twice, now he's doing it, now he has the will. And you will encourage that person. So let's talk about that. You've got Happy with the Hooch. First of all, you got to tell me how you came up with the name.
I just like a bit of alliteration. I was like, I want it to be about happiness, because for me, I mean, having suffered for so long, sort of since my teenage years, with very long bouts of depression, so most of my life actually. So, and now having found sobriety, I'm sort of the happiest I've been. So, and I like alliteration, so I wanted the next word to be H, and I was thinking, well, what word means alcohol and begins with H, and hooch it was, and I like the word. It's ridiculous and old fashioned, a bit like myself. So I just I went with that.
That's awesome. That's all. I love your Instagram platform, and you guys can find Michael at Happy with the Hooch on everything. So I want to talk about you just talked about happiness. Okay. For me, I am too. I'm very happy. Things are really coming back together for me. I have my ups and downs, because the holidays are tough. And with my youngest daughter, I have not talked to her in 2.5 years. So this will be the third Christmas without her. And it's just my soul hurts. And 10 months ago, I was drinking. 10 months ago, I was packing my truck and driving cross country 11 months ago, driving cross country to California. And I drank the whole way there. I didn't drink when I drove because I knew I was driving in different states, but I would get a hotel at night and I would drink and I'd go out. And when I got here, I thought that things would be different, but they weren't. And so here I am, I'm used to having big events, something to do at the holidays, so many parties that I'm having to jump around to all of them. And I get sober and I'm like, what is there to do? How do I have fun being sober? And I actually reached out to you because I wanted to have my first sober event, and you are a sober event planner. So I was like, all right, Michael, tell me what to do. So I want to kind of ask you again, you are having these social events. Tell me how that started, why you wanted to do it, and how much fun are they?
Okay, so how it started was, it was about June, sort of late June, early July this year, and we're still sort of in lockdown at that stage. And previously we'd been out of lockdown, and during my sober spell that lasted 7 months, I'd been out, and essentially I was just going out and doing the things I would usually do, but just without alcohol. I'd go to my local pub quite a lot. And what I would find was that I enjoyed the first part of the evening until everyone had about 3 pints of beer. Once they started their fourth drink, then I started enjoying it less. I wasn't facing temptation at this point. It's just people then, after a few drinks, they'd start talking over each other. They started behaving erratically. The conversation wasn't flowing like it was at the beginning. And I was just finding it. And then there'd always be people getting too drunk and causing chaos and drama. And it's like, I just wanted to go home. And so I often would just go home, because it's like, I used to be the worst person in that pub. I was probably, the drunkest there, the rudest. And now, going there sober, I was finding other people irritating. So God knows what they must have thought of me. And so when we were in lockdown again, went back into lockdown, we were preparing to come out. I thought, I don't want to just continue doing everything I did before without alcohol because it's actually quite boring. So I thought what would be nice is I wish I could just go to a cafe in the evening and have coffee, listen to some music, eat some cake, because who doesn't like cake? But in my town, there was nowhere other than pubs and restaurants really open after 6 p.m. So it's not like some parts of mainland Europe where you get sort of cafes open in the evening. That's not really, it doesn't really happen over here in the UK so much. Maybe a bit in London, some of the big cities, but I live in a town that's a population of 180,000. So not a tiny town, but literally nothing to do that doesn't involve alcohol after 6. So I posted into a local Facebook group that's got a half decent following, seeing if anybody else would be interested in going to an alcohol-free nights. If I could get to a venue and some music, would anybody be interested in coming along? And within sort of a couple of hours, 11, 12 people had messaged me to say, yes, I would, and I'd like to help you with this. And then by the end of the week, I'd had so many contacts that I set up my own Facebook group, which has got about 500 people in it. And that's just a local group to my town. And I had my first event at the beginning of August as we came out of lockdown. There were about 40 people there. And so typically, I mean, they're not massive events. I run a little alcohol-free bar. It's a pop-up, so it's a disused shop. It's a shop that's closed down, and it's been sort of tarted up a little bit, so it still looks fairly industrial. We've got a bar there, an alcohol-free bar, and I get in alcohol-free spirits and make cocktails, and I invite local musicians to play. I give them some money. I can't afford much, but I give them some, and then they also busk, so other people, if they like the music, they get to put some coins in the performer's hat, or they can do it on their card, because I'm up there with the technology. I think everybody uses cards since the pandemic, over here at least, because nowhere accepted cash. And it's continued from then. I've been doing sort of 3 events a month, and I take a weekend off. But also as a result of me doing that, there's another cafe locally who had been thinking a long time about staying open on the odd Friday or Saturday night. And so now generally on the weekend where I'm off, they have a Friday night where they have something on. So for example, it's my weekend off this weekend, and they've got a board games night, and with a local musician who's brilliant. I've heard her before. So I'm going to be going along there, get to play some board games, get to listen to some great live music, and they do the best cake and sort of milkshakes and things in town. So what more could you want? In fact, I was supposed to be going to a work do tomorrow, the work Christmas do, although it was pizza, so I don't think that's not a Christmas meal. And I pulled out of it today because I wanted to do the board games and the music instead in my hometown with my friends. So I've made my excuses, and I'm going to do that instead.
That's fantastic. What a great idea. And I know like you kind of inspired me to do some more. And I know people listening to this, there's going to be the person who's like, I want to go to that. And then there's going to be the person who says, I'll plan that, And so it's just awesome that we have this incredible community. Now, you said that you went to a treatment center and then you were not working. Are you married? Do you have kids? Can I ask a personal question?
You can ask personal questions. So at the time when I had my first stint of recovery, I was separated from my long-term partner. We were married. In fact, we still are. Haven't sorted that one out. And so I was single then. And I've now got a partner, and I'll have been with him for a year. I think it's this week, actually. I better double check in case I've forgotten. Otherwise, it could
better
be
get something. Well, congratulations.
And well, that's interesting because he was also has addiction problems. So
Okay.
It probably wasn't the best idea, really, because he was still in active addiction, and actually has been for a lot of my most recent sobriety. But I'm pleased to say, I think this week he is 3 months sober, which is the most he's ever been without. So he's a bit behind me, and it's been a rocky road, but
That's incredible.
there's some real progress there. It's like, it came to the point, so like we could keep on failing together and being miserable, or we can actually work together as a team and both carve out a better future for ourselves. And I feel like that's what we're doing now. Um, I thought that I was getting a bit tired of his relapses, I have to admit. And I was thinking, this isn't not going to work, because that is not part of my future. And I was almost prepared to just say, look, I've given it my best try, but I can't do this anymore. And then something just seemed to stick, and he's on a real strong spell. And I feel that we've got a real shot at a future now together, because we're both wanting the same thing. And we're both just so much better mentally, and we're supporting each other as opposed to trying to drag each other back down that path of addiction and instant gratification.
Absolutely. I think relationships, are definitely easier or harder in sobriety. I have quite a few friends with an eclectic uh differences. I have a friend who, has been married for 20 years and she's 2 years sober, and their marriage is not what it was, and he is in his addiction and she's waiting it out, and I don't know how she does it. I know people that are, met in the program and they've been married for 20 something years. Or I mean, I personally don't think you can, if you have been in like my situation or maybe your situation, like you said, I can't be in a relationship with someone who isn't sober. I will relapse. I can't, misery loves company. And if one person's, doing the addiction, the other person's sober, there's just going to be that tug. And my last relationship, it was, that's all it was someone I could drink with. And it lasted 3 years because that's all we did was drink. And I didn't get judged for having a hangover because he had a hangover too, and so I was in a really terrible situation in that. And I was confident to get out of it because I knew I needed change in my life, and I needed sobriety. It was the only thing that was going to save me, plus health issues. I have a ton of health issues and mental health issues. I've struggled with depression for years and years and years, and drinking always just made me spiral. It always started out fun, and then I just would spiral down and go into just a pure depression. And my family got to see it when I moved here. They never really knew. And I was staying at their house and I would sleep for a week, just a week of sleep, and I didn't want to do anything, didn't want to see anybody, didn't care. I couldn't even understand it. Like, I couldn't even lift my arms to text someone. Like, I had nothing inside me. The mental capacity literally robbed me of every emotion. The depression just robbed every sensation that I normally would have, and it just ruled me. And so I had to get help. I could not stay in that. I had to get professional help, a therapist. I have a sponsor, that's great, but for my mental health, I have a professional. I think everyone needs therapy. It's just it really is healthy. It's just like going, people think that if you're going to a mental health person, like you've got all these issues, but it's like, okay, you go to the doctor. If you go to the doctors every year, he goes and he checks your heart, right? And he goes and he hits your knee and makes sure it reflexes, and he takes the stethoscope and he puts it on your back and you take a deep breath. And it's like, your brain needs, your mental health needs the exact same attention as every other body part that you have. I truly believe that. I love that you're doing these social events, and I am so excited about that, and the fact that you are really fun on everything and you promote happiness. And I think that's really huge, and you might not even know how much of a difference you're making, because it could be that day, when someone like me is just having a down day, and then they go and they get on their Instagram feed and they see what you have to say, and that keeps them sober. that gives them that extra day and that extra confidence, and they don't feel alone. And I think that's really what we're doing here. And I love that. I love that you're doing these events and you inspire me. And basically I'm excited to see your journey. I'm really looking forward to, I want to kind of bring everybody back in a year and redo the podcast and be like, what's going on? Because a year in sobriety is like 10 years in real life. It's crazy. So I'm so excited to hear what happens in your life. You got so much exciting things coming for the new year. So
Thank
with
you. Yeah, I've got
with
some exciting plans. So it will be interesting to see how those all pan out. And thank you for saying those kind words. It's just I do the Instagram for selfish reasons. It's because it keeps me accountable, and I get so much support from it, from hearing other people's kind words. And I just love hearing other people's stories. And if I'm on there every day, it reminds me, well, if there's people who are behind me in sobriety or still in addiction, it reminds me of how I was and helps me not become complacent. And then I can also be inspired by people who have got years and years of sobriety and are still checking in there with the community, the recovery community, and helping others. And so it's a brilliant community to be part of, and I get a lot from it.
Well, I am excited too because I know you're kind of venturing in and being a comedian and doing some comedy stuff, and you crack me up on Instagram because I think you actually post stuff that I'm thinking, but I don't have the courage to post it. And I'm like, I sometimes I'm like, yes, he said that. Like someone said it. And so I love your transparency, and I really do think that you're making a huge difference. And so you're going to be dabbling in the comedy. Do you think you will include like sober humor into that, or is it going to be more just day to day?
Well, so I've done a bit of improvised comedy, and this all started. It was actually because I thought it was going to be helpful for my sobriety. I've actually been I've suffered terribly from nerves over the years, and the idea of I've had to give like a speak in front of crowds before, and I've fallen apart. And then when that happens, it makes you even more nervous the next time. And I'm the same when I go into a bar or a pub. I'll go in there and I don't know anyone. And so instantly I'll have drinks because that makes me feel at ease. And I don't want to be drinking again. And I can't have that as a crutch anymore in my life. So I thought, you know what? If I'm sobering up for good, then I'm going to start doing the things that scare me sober, because that is the only way I can get over it. Is I want to conquer it instead of medicate against it. And I'd really liked the idea. I've seen some improv comedy shows before, and I really liked it. And I knew they did a course, and I've never signed up because I thought there was no way on God's green earth that I will be standing up on a stage and trying to be funny and potentially getting no laughs and going home feeling like a complete idiot. And so I forced myself to do that course. It was 10 weeks. I thoroughly enjoyed it all. And then, to my utter amazement, at the end of this course, we do a showcase. It's like you invite friends and family and members of the public. It's about 75 people in total normally. And you go on the stage, and I didn't feel any nerves. And that was incredible for me. That was a breakthrough because, like, I'm also an amateur musician. I play in an orchestra. I'm fine. I play along, and then as soon as I've got a solo passage, the fear of God goes into me, and I fall apart and usually stuff it up. And so I'm thinking, oh, I wonder when we do our next concert whether I will actually be able to get through the solo passage because I'm not panicking and terrified. So I did that. And I really enjoyed it. And now I'm setting myself a challenge of doing my first 5-minute stand-up set in February. I want to do it. I've got friends who have done some stand-up, and they're saying, well, you start with 5-minute slots as like a newcomer, and then you try and do that in a few places. You alter it a bit each time. You make a note of what the reaction was, what was funny, what worked, what didn't work, and try and perfect 5 minutes, and then try and get bigger gigs. I've got no aspirations to become like a professional. This is a challenge I set myself to make myself more confident, less nervous, and it's a creative hobby that I really enjoy now. So, and I do intend to incorporate sobriety into that. So I think I like humor that is actually raises a serious point. Something can be funny, but it can also be profound at the same time. And there's so many people who drink to excess. There's something that most people will relate to, but they won't talk about it openly. And I think we need more people to talk about it openly. Here in the UK, we've got a binge drinking culture, and 25% of the population will regularly drink over the recommended limit. So that's 1 in 4 people. Everybody knows someone who is no, abusing alcohol. If they're not, and if they don't, it's probably because they're abusing it themselves. They're probably the person. So it's something that I know people will relate to, and it's something that's so normalized that I mean, if I don't see the difference between alcohol and other drugs other than legality. Alcohol, I think if it were discovered today, it would probably be a class A drug, but it's here and it's legal, and that's because of historic reasons. But we really stigmatize people who abuse drugs, and we don't do that with alcohol. But alcohol is just as dangerous, and I've another sort of a bit of hypocrisy I found is when people will suggest that marijuana is a gateway drug that leads to other drugs. So marijuana is really bad, and they'll often say that whilst supping on some Chablis or something. Well, for me, alcohol was my gateway drug. I would not do other drugs at all. Like sober, I'd be very anti-drugs. After I'd had a few drinks, if somebody put a drug in front of me, I'd take it. And I might not even remember taking it. I've had that before, but the next day, because I've always suffered from blackout. It's very rare that I'd go out drinking or stay at home drinking, as it used to be in the end, and remember the end of the evening. And I've had people say, "Oh no, you're on drugs last night." And I was like, "No, I wasn't. Don't be so stupid." Well, here's the video. Here's the video evidence of you taking drugs. And I was like, and I just have no knowledge of it. So.
You bring up a really big point, and that could be a really good subject just to do on a podcast on itself, because I do think that alcohol is the gateway to a lot of things. It's not just even drugs, it's abuse, it's physical and mental and verbally. There's so many. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, you're right. People, I launched a petition recently to I don't know what labeling's like on cigarettes in the States or North America, but we have all sorts of health warnings on cigarettes here in the UK, and they have pictures of sort of lungs looking all mangy because they got lung cancer, and they're not allowed any branding on them. They just have boxes with very plain text. And it's been like that for quite a few years now. And I'd posted into a few Facebook groups that we should have similar apply to alcohol, and the amount of abuse essentially that I got as a result of that was quite revealing as to what society's attitude is towards alcohol. And a lot of the comments were that, well, cigarettes are almost certain to kill you, whereas alcohol is much less likely. But alcohol does so many more harms. You don't see people smoking a cigarette and then going home and beating up their wife as a result. You don't see people smoking a cigarette and then sort of climbing a tower and falling off and dying because of the result of the cigarette. There are so many harms associated directly and indirectly with alcohol that it's a hugely dangerous drug. It's just a hugely dangerous legal drug.
Well, it's an empire. It's a money empire, and so you're fighting against these guys who are making so much money that you can't touch them. And so they know that they don't care. They're like, we're going to, we're gonna have it in the grocery store, everywhere you go. You buy a bag of chips, you get like a free vodka. Like it's ridiculous. So and it does, like you said, like. Once I got sober, I like ice cream and sweets were like my thing. And I lost a little weight from not drinking, and then I gained weight from all the sugar. And, I've said this before, but my mom said, well, Crystal, ice cream's not going to hurt anybody. You're not going to get in a car and kill someone after you eat ice cream. and it's so true. It's just like the cigarette. I mean, and we mask it because it's this acceptable thing, and we're using all these healthcare, resources for all these things that is by choice, as opposed to moving all that money to cancer or cancer research. We're using it on all the people that are coming into the ER because they drank too much and they're having panic attacks, and now they have like you said, there should be a liver. Maybe they should put a crappy liver on every wine bottle, like you're ruining your liver. There's no awareness for what the potential is because it's so acceptable, and like you said, it's a gateway to many things, and most of them are negative, unfortunately.
I don't think anybody becomes a better person for drinking. It never brings out the best side of somebody. It might make them feel like they're super sexy and that they can dance and that they're confident and everything, but I mean, sobriety opens your eyes, doesn't it? I dread to think what I was actually like when I was drunk.
It's unbelievable because I don't know if you listen, what episode you listened to, or if you heard the one my ex-husband and I, we were in lifestyle in like a swinging situation, and we ran a bunch of parties and all this crazy stuff, but it was all revolved around alcohol and drugs. And he was very big into cocaine, and I couldn't do cocaine because it would I would get like heart palpitations, but I couldn't keep up with him because he was drinking and doing the cocaine. And I mean, we're throwing these parties and we're doing all stuff. I couldn't keep up with him. So literally I had someone said, "Hey, have you ever tried Adderall?" And I'm like, "No," sure enough, I had a few drinks. Someone gave me a half of an Adderall. Forget it. I was on Adderall for years, and that was how I kept up. I was super skinny, never ate, and it was Adderall and alcohol. And I would have never done that if I was drinking. You could not have told me like, "Here, take this pill. It's going to, make you high. It's going to make you have energy. It's going to make you, feel like you're invincible," and I did. And even there was a time I was teaching, I was taking so much Adderall to keep up, because we were doing we had two lives. We had our lives at home with the kids in our town, and then we had our secret life of lifestyle and swinging and all this baloney and partying. And so I would come back and I would teach these classes after we had these crazy weekends. They were full of chaos. And I would be teaching and someone would say, "Crystal, your nose is bleeding." My body. And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like wiping my nose, and I'm like, "I didn't do anything." And sure enough, my husband said, "Oh yeah, you did a line of cocaine last night." I'm like, "What?" "Oh yeah, here's the video. Here's the photo." And I'm like, "Why would you let me do that?" Like, it's all his fault. "Why would you let me do that?" And he's like, "I didn't let you do anything. You were drinking and you were adamant. No one was going to stop you." And I was just like, I had so much shame, because I was like, I would never do that. I'm running a business. I would never do that. And I literally had a client come to me and say, "Your nose is bleeding." And she knew exactly why. And I never saw that client again. And so, I mean, I could tell you stories all day long, but with that, I'm so grateful. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we close out?
I think we've covered quite a lot, and I've just been really fascinated by your story and your candor as well. And I'm really excited to hear how your event goes, your first event. So we'll have to have a catch up about that.
Definitely. I plan on, and it's crazy because it's like, I'm like, do we do photos? Do people do photos at these things? Are they anonymous? Are they not anonymous? I'm like, this is so weird. Like, as opposed to, lifestyle parties where it's like, okay, we got to make sure there's not a single guy there because there's rules, and, the wife's half naked. So it doesn't even matter. I mean, it was wild stories. And now it's like, so calm, and everybody's like, "What can I bring? What can I do?" And this company's like, "We'll send you this for that." And I'm like, these are great. This is going to be a great party. So I'm really excited. I want to do some more board nights and all that stuff. We did last weekend on Saturday, I joined a committee of women, and it's like Sober Sisters or something, and we did an event called Bingo Bells, and there was like over 200 of us playing bingo, just a bunch of alcoholics, and oh my god, we had fun. People are crazy. We're like, they don't need no alcohol. And at first thing I thought was, could you imagine all of us drunk? Like, we are wild without it. Like,
you know what, when I have my events, and it's not just me, so I've got people who help me out, and we have a really good time, and we get a real high from it. And I haven't had time to eat before the event, and then after I finished, it's late, and so we stop off for a kebab, which is a great British after pub tradition. So we go back, and then we have a greasy, dirty kebab, and then go home, and it's like midnight, and we're like, you know what? I feel like I just had a big night out. It feels no different. And I don't think people appreciate when they go out for drinks. A lot of the buzz they get is from actually just being in a social atmosphere and interacting with other people. And if you're not comfortable interacting with strangers, then alcohol allows you to do that. But if you can do that without alcohol, you still get that same high, you still get that same buzz, but then you get a decent night's sleep and you don't feel like hell when you wake up. And that's one of the things has been a bit of an eye-opener for me, really, and for quite a few of the others who have attended. Just that actually you can have a really good night and still get that same buzz, just without any other downsides. And I hope that's something you experience too.
Yes, I'm excited. I actually just went to my first theme park sober, and that was really a blast. And it was different. Like, you notice like all the people drinking beer and like doing the roller the strollers, they're like drinking a beer with the baby and stroller, and I'm looking at them and I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, I don't want to drink right now. I actually want to remember, like, I want to be present for this. And so I was afraid I wasn't going to have fun. I really was afraid that I was not going to have fun at this theme park, because I've never been to one without drinking. I would always have, like, in the car, I would have my roadie as we drove there. Then in my backpack, I would have my little minis, and then I could be taking those when I went to the bathroom, and then we'd buy the beers and walk all around. And so my muscle memory of going to a theme park was that. And so when I went this time and I got to enjoy, who I was with and where I was at and remember it was so much fun. And I was like, I literally got home and I thought, I had a really good time. And I have not said that when I'm, wasted and I don't remember the night and I wake up and go, I've never been like, I had such a great time. I'm usually like, where's my wallet? Who did I text?
Yeah.
Like, why do I have a bruise here? Why do I have a scratch here? I do not wake up and go, wow, I had a really good time. And that is what sobriety has given me. And I am so blessed now to have that. And I have that choice to have that, because nobody's telling me I have to do it. Nobody's saying you have to be sober. I am choosing to be sober, and I'm reaping the benefits of it. So, well, with that, are you anything else you wanted to talk about? I so much enjoyed this. I was so excited to meet you.
I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm really up for that, chat in a year's time, see what's actually happened.
Yes, I'm going to bring everybody back. It's going to be so different and it'll be fun to like watch it before and talk about it, because we can go, can you believe, that was where I was at that point. So it'll be really exciting. So awesome, Michael. Well, again, you guys, you can find Michael on Instagram and Facebook. It's going to be Happy with the Hooch. And you can follow him and or Happy Without the Hooch. That's right.
We don't want the hooch. No. I was miserable with the hooch.
Messed that one up. Happy without the hooch. Okay. And Michael, it's been so great. Again, thank you so much, because I know there's a major time change, and I appreciate that you took the time to come on the podcast and share your story and just tell us how you did it. And I really was inspired by you, and I'm really excited to see some of your comedy shows and continue to follow you. And with that, thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed being on.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you so much. This is Crystal with Sober Onions. Remember, if I can do it, we can do it.